Hi, everybody. Welcome to Gig. I'm your host, Mike Redman. I've been doing this podcast for a while now, and every once in a while, I meet somebody that's just extraordinary. That's the word I would use to describe Mark Bonilla. He's an LA-based guitarist that's played with lots of bands, loves to tour, composes music for film and TV, and he's a compassionate deep thinker. I found him so thoughtful to talk to that I decided to go long and produce 2 episodes around Mark. Here we go. So Mark, hi. It's wonderful to have you on Gig. Thanks for joining me today.
Well, I'm pleased to be here, man. Anywhere Steve Porcaro goes, I'm proud to be following him. So,
me too.
Yeah.
Hey, so I know you're touring. Touring right now. Would you? I set this up in the introduction to you, but you've been touring for a lot of your career. Would you talk a little bit about the band that you're with right now, and maybe a little bit about life on the road over an extended period?
Well, the band I'm in right now is the name of the band is Project, and what we did is we're all from other bands, and we decided to get together and kind of keep alive the progressive music because it's underrepresented. It was always underappreciated, in my opinion.
Yeah.
Progressive music was always a large umbrella of music that encompassed several different styles. You had classic. It was actually originally called classical rock back in the ELP and Yes days, but it's gone further than that now as far as its scope. And but it encompasses blues, country, jazz, rock, classical, all of those styles, new age. And so for me, it's one umbrella that is challenging too because of the time signatures and all of that, and thematic and orchestral compositional heft and all of those things. I always found it to be the most visual music, that I've been associated with. So that's why we're doing it. And we're bringing back, the bands like Gentle Giant, Yes.
Oh, wow.
Utopia, all of the great stuff that we grew up with, the kind of our formative years, and paying tip of the hat to those guys, and the people that come are so appreciative because they don't get a chance to hear this because most of the guys are either not here anymore or they're not playing, they're off, and to be able to hit it with the same amount of fervency as they did when they were in their 20s. And that's what we do. We really
That's awesome.
Give this stuff up, and the people have been so appreciative of it. So anyway, So I've been out with that for a couple of months, and then coming back, and I'll be going out with CTA and Daddy Seraphin, doing with Jeff Coffey, doing some of the Chicago stuff, which is also great music.
That was awesome.
I just try to challenge myself with music I love to play at this stage of my career. I just want to be able to enjoy, all of those things and hopefully bring that to others, So
That's cool. That's really cool. So Utopia, Todd's band, Todd's Utopia.
Yeah. We do a piece of the icon in there, and so it's
that's awesome,
it's
man.
Great stuff,
Yeah, he wrote the foreword for one of my music books. He's he's always been one of my heroes for sure.
Yeah.
Hey, so this is I'll probably ask you a couple oddball questions, but what the heck, we're here. So you've had a great career. You've done lots of different things. Tell me a story, if you can, about something that illustrates what it is you love about music to begin with.
Well, I can give you several.
Good.
There was. I'll give you 3. I'll give you 3. 3 is always a good number. I was with Keith Emerson over in Kazan, Russia, in 2008. The wall had recently, been down. But the music, hadn't proliferated like it has now, and so they were doing a concert over there called Concert, or was it for Peace, I think, and it was like a worldwide event where they invited musicians from every continent to come by. So there was the Tibetan monks, there were musicians from Africa, just amazing, Ukrainian choral group that was unbelievable. And so we got invited to come over. And it was the first event that they were going to publicize nationally throughout Russia. So there ended up being about 250,000 people there when we played. in the afternoon, Keith and the band, and we went back to the hotel, and the promoters came up shortly after that and they were looking very pained. And they came up and asked me, he said, look, we have a favor to ask of you. And I said, well, what do you need? And they said, well, Robert Plant decided not to do this. I don't know if it was the fact that he looked at the size of the crowd, maybe wasn't big enough. Not that he hasn't played, but whatever. Anyway, his band was there, but he decided not to do it. So he asked, could you sing a duet with Patti Smith? All you need is love, and then sing a whole lot of love. And I said, yeah, I'll do it, because I didn't want to say no to them. They were very upset that they thought, oh, this is the finale and we don't have a lead singer to do that. So, and so they were happy. They walked away, and Keith leaned over and he goes, you sing that high? And I went, shit, I don't know, And I had to go up in the hotel room with a pillow, put it over my face, and scream to try and get my voice up in that area, get it loosened up and all that. And then I couldn't remember if it was, you need cooling. I'm sending you to schooling. Is it cooling before schooling, or is it schooling? You know the song, but if you have to sing it, it's a whole different thing. So I had to refamiliarize my sequencing.
Oh my God!
And so we get to the gig, and by then there was like it was like a landscape of people. There was about 350,000 people at this show, and being fully televised, live.
Wow!
And we got up to the gate, and they wouldn't let us in because of all the fireworks that they apparently had planned. So our driver got out and was able to schmooze them by vodka. He pulled out his vodka. Everybody in Russia has vodka in their back pocket, right?
I tell you stories, but yeah.
Yeah, well, all right. So he was sharing us some vodka and a cigarette with the guard, and then it was like, the gates opened up when he ran. But because of the delay, I had to run right on stage and introduce myself to Patti on the stage, like, "Hi, I'm Robert Plant."
Oh God! Oh my God!
And we sang. And we pulled it off. I was actually able to hit the notes. But
wow.
The next day, we had the day off. And Kazan is known for its religious tolerance. There's all kinds of mosques, Russian Orthodox, Catholic, Lutheran, Jewish temples, everything in this city. So we were able to go into the mosque. We had to take our shoes off, and they gave us a tour of the mosque. And then they said, hey, would you like to come down into the subterranean archives to see the real stuff that we've had for, hundreds of years? So we went, of course we do, So we went down this stairway into this wholesome, and there are these old ladies down there that are probably about as old as the archives. And they have like the shawls on, and, and their burqas, and they're the ones that maintain the artifacts. Sure. So I get down there. One of them spots me and shrieked and came running up, grabbed my hand and was kissing it and just spouting off in Russian. And I'm looking at my interpreter going, okay, what's going on here? And okay. So he's quoting, goes, she says that she saw you on TV last night. You sang like a bird. It made her cry. Her son-in-law made fun of her, but she doesn't care. And I'm like, wow. And all the other ones, when they recognized who I was from the night before, they were like teeny boppers. I mean, they were giddy and it was like, wait a minute, there's something wrong. This was like the dialogue from one movie in another movie, it was so. And they were all wanting to take pictures. They were giddy. And I went, my God, look at the power of music. You have, it spans religion. It spans race. It spans language barriers. It spans generational barriers.
Age.
All of that. I would never have expected that from this. But that's what the power of music does. And I've never forgotten that lesson. And one that was similar to that was my wife, Joey, and I went to we had some friends, a very strange story. And again, this is why I think things are ordained for your lessons. My plumber at the time, Steve Blackmer, I told him we were going to go to Montana for a vacation. And he goes, oh, hey, you got to look up my friends Joe and Murietta Malone. I'm like, who's Joe and Murietta Malone? Oh, no, they're neighbors that I grew up with down here. Oh, they're great people. I went, dude, I don't even know these people.
Yeah. I'll look them up.
No, they're great. Just, so he wrote down, I stuck my shirt pocket, right? So flash forward, there in Montana, and I don't know what I was doing, but I felt, oh shit, I still have that piece of paper. It's that phone number. Well, he's going to ask me when I get back. So at least call them and say hi. Yeah. So I call up and I get Murietta on the phone. She goes, hello, and I said, hi. You literally don't know me from Adam, but I'm a friend of Steve Blackburn. Oh, Steve. Oh, yes. Well, come on over. And it's like, well, no. Here's the story. So, all right, we'll go. We had nothing to do that day. So he ended up literally about 2-hour driving into literally the middle of nowhere in a place
in Montana.
Yeah, Martinsdale, which is almost smack dab in the middle of Montana. A dirt road going back, and the road, all there was a general store, a post office, and a phone booth. So I get in the phone booth at the time because they didn't have, we didn't have cell phones back then, and or I didn't, and called up, their number saying, and Joe answered and he goes, hi. Oh yeah. Hey, where are you? And I said, well, I'm at a phone booth next to the post office. He goes, oh, look to the right. So I looked to the right and he's standing out on the porch waving, on his phone. So it's like, okay, there was not a lot of houses, but I didn't know which one. So anyway, so we go there and the first thing he says is, okay, first of all, you're staying the night. No argument. You're going to stay over.
Okay.
And we could have been serial killers, but they it was a friend of Steve's, a friend of ours. So we ended up having a great visitation with him, and he says, hey, I'm going over to the Hutterite colony. Do you want to come? I do business with them. And the Hutterites are much like the Amish people, but they're German. Okay. And they're isolated. They're a little more isolated than the Amish. But they sell their wares and stuff in town, and he does work with them. So we went over there, and again, another dirt road back all the way, and we get into this place, and this is whole colony. And all the men are over here with the suspenders, the beard, the whole 9 yards, and they're building a new schoolhouse over here. All the men, all the women apparently are down making rhubarb wine, which is quite effective.
That's really interesting.
But when we got out of the car, all the kids came up and were like touching us, like like we landed in a spaceship. These outholders, and they had never seen any. They don't see those people, especially with hair and all of that. So this girl came up and she says, hey, would you like to come down? And we're making wine down here while they're doing their business. So Joey and I went down to this place. And these girls they're all making rhubarb wine in this large thing. And they're all singing, to pass the time, they sing religious songs. And they're in this gorgeous 3 or 4 part harmony, beautiful madrigal stuff that was just like unbelievable. And I said, wow, this beautiful stuff. She goes, do you sing? I said, well, yeah, I'm a musician. Apparently they can't play. They're not allowed to play musical instruments. The men can, but they can't.
Oh,
so
interesting.
Runs out of the door in the back. And we were talking about it. Then about 5 minutes later, she comes in with this pilfered guitar, acoustic guitar, right-handed. So, thank you. I'm left, right-handed, 5 strings on it. And they said, let's go down. Let's sneak out. We snuck out of the building, went down around the other side of the hill over to the old abandoned schoolhouse that they were replacing. Ran inside, pulled all the shades down, and they're like, do you know to play rock and roll? Can you play rock and roll?
Oh, my God.
And it's like the forbidden fruit, right? So I said, like, what, like Chuck Berry? Yeah, Chuck Berry, Chuck Berry. So I started playing like Johnny B. Song, and they started reeling around, like in these satanic undulations. They weren't satanic.
Sounds like a Stephen King novel.
Oh, I'm looking at Joey like, are you believing this shit? It was just unbelievable. They were just in ecstasy. And then we would stop. They would clap. Then they would sing this beautiful, like 3 or 4 part harmony. And we would sit there and just be in awe of them. We did that for about, 20 minutes. And all the little kids were trying to like look in, and they were yelling at him in German to fuck off, and all this. But again, the power of music transcending that kind of cultural barriers.
Yeah,
you can't. Those are lessons for you to because if I hadn't just pulled out that one sheet from my plumber, maybe I should call. I would have missed, or both of us would have missed that entire experience. Yeah. So those things are set up for you in the order. If you don't say yes to things, you're like, if I hadn't said yes to singing, if I hadn't said yes to calling that number. So when those things are are presented to you, always say yes. You know, it's better that you do something and wish you hadn't than not have done it and wish you had.
Yeah.
It's much better because you deny yourself too much life, you know,
That's it.
and especially lessons like that secure the power of music.
Boy, I love that last part. I think I'm just going to take that little quote and put it on TikTok or something. No, seriously, that was really, really good. Thank you for the stories, man. That's awesome. You know, I have a funny feeling this is going to be a 2-part podcast because you're too much fun to talk to and listen to. So, and usually I'm talking a whole lot more. I was looking at your website. I thought it was really awesome that a guy like yourself that's been successful, you know, as a musician, a guitarist, and you've had a long career, it also gives guitar lessons. I thought that was wild. Why did you decide to do that? You obviously, you know, as I do, you're not going to make much money giving guitar lessons, but that's question part one is why did you decide? And the second is what kind of student would benefit from working with you like that?
Well, I mean, the monetary aspect was never a motivation for it.
Yeah.
You know, I've taught people for free.
Sure.
If they want whatever they want to learn, you know, the thing is that you have to always remember where you came from. You know, and I remember back in the day, you know, I was so hungry for any knowledge, you know, growing up, and especially from people that I looked up to or people that were doing it at the time. And so for me, I've always tried to, again, seize those opportunities when they present themselves. There was a incident that happened on the Mark and Brian show one day when I was in there with Kevin Gilbert, and we were promoting our first album. Or no, we were promoting the first album, getting ready to do the second album. And we were in there in the morning show, and this little guy calls up, he's 10 years old, James DePrado, and he was a fan. And I said, yeah, you're a fan? You know, because, yeah, I play guitar, you know. And I said, you have your guitar right now? And he said, yeah. And so I said, we're going to take a station break, and we're going to come back. I want you to get your guitar ready. So did a station break. In the middle of the station break, I asked the producer, can we go out of delay? Can we, like, take our radio out of delay? Because they put you in, like, a 5-second delay.
Yeah.
And they said, why? I said, because I want to do something with him. I swear, we're not going to say anything offensive, none of that. I promise you. So we did. We took ourselves out of delay. Came back and I said, okay, James, I want you to put your phone down by your amplifier. And I want you to turn your radio full blast up so you can hear us. And we have a band in here. We're going to play some blues. And you're going to jam to that blues, and we'll be able to hear you in time. Yeah. And so that's what we did. We did this blues thing, and he's jamming away, and that's going off over the airwaves. You know,
I love that.
And he was great. He was really good. He had like timing, he had feel, and he had pauses in between his statements. You know, so I was really impressed with this little guy. And I said, okay, I got one more for you. And I said, we're going in to do the new album in a couple of months. I want you to come in and do a solo on the album with me. We'll do a guitar duel. And he was like, really? You know, and it's like, yeah. And he came in with his parents. We filmed it, you know, so he has and he's on the album. And then we did the full, like, Baker's Banquet photo for the Insta. This is for American Matador. And all the guys were there, James Newton Howard, Glenn Hughes, Ronnie Montrose, you know, all the boys. And here he is right there in the middle of them, you know, the midget in the room. But, you know,
that's so cool.
But to this day, he plays. This day, that's what he does. But that was the moment for him that sealed it. Like, I'm as good as these guys, or I can hang with these guys.
I can do this. I can do this.
I can do this. Yes, exactly. Yeah. So again, coming back to lessons, those are the things that shape you at a very early age, those impressionable years, you know. So for me, teaching, I taught for a lot of years, and you don't ever learn about your craft until you teach it, because you have to break the engine block down to every single part. You may know that. And there's a big difference, because I flunked algebra twice in high school, switched my teacher from Mr. Elliott to Mr. Gregson. The third year, I got an A. And it was the same book, the same course, the same curriculum. Then I went, hey, wait a minute. What's the difference here? Not me. I didn't study during the summer. It's that frickin' teacher. And so I know, and this is what I preface all my lessons with, because guys get a little nervous or as you can, or if you're explaining something and they don't quite understand it, I said, look, if you don't understand something, it's not your fault. It's my fault, because you're a house. I got to find the door that gets into that house. The front door might be locked, but I might be able to shinny up the banister, climb across to the rose bush, hit that attic window, kick open the door. I'll get to your ass. But that's the teacher's responsibility, is to understand the student and understand how they learn, the different patterns. They may learn mathematically, they may learn visually, pictorially, whatever it is. You have to find the access code to get into that brain. And that's the challenge of teachers. And a lot of times teachers, they're rote sometimes, not all of them, obviously. I've had some brilliant teachers in my life, but that was always the key defining factor, was to be able to look at each individual person and find out a way to get them to understand. And when you do that and you relieve them of all the responsibility of that, they free up. And you can only express music and all that by being in a relaxed state and not being afraid to make mistakes. And this is what I try to tell my students. I said, look, I want you to make mistakes, because mistakes says, for one, in life, you don't learn by doing it right. You learn by doing it wrong. That's how you learn. And you learn it much better that way. And so I welcome mistakes. Those are my growing points. And it's the same when you reflect in life, you reflect in music. And the music's the same thing. You reflect those by being bold and trying new things. You may step on your dick a few times, that's okay. But you go in there, and by making mistakes, you learn what you're capable of, and pushing yourself beyond your comfort level. That's where you want to be. But you have to understand that the force behind all of this is a flow. It doesn't come from you, it comes through you. And when guys understand that, they are able to tap into that flow. When you watch Hendrix at Woodstock and you watch him doing Star Spangled Banner, you have the split screen and you see him just blazing away. But then you see his face is just, he's in the Bahamas somewhere. He ain't there.
Yeah.
Someone else is driving that car. And that's what, in lessons, the thing that I try to bring across to the guys is, everybody can learn scales. Everybody can do all that stuff and learn the right fingering and the proper things. The hard part is learning how to express that. There's a big difference between playing something and performing something. And playing something is like a table read, when you're sitting around a desk and all the actors are sitting there, they're going through the script, and they're just doing it. But then, all right, throw the script away, cameras on, act. Now you're performing it. It's a whole different thing. And that's how it is on stage or in your bedroom. Doesn't matter where it is. The performance aspect is the hardest part to teach, because it's something that becomes a little nebulous and there's different ways of doing it. But the source is always the same. And the source is the continual flow through you, not from you, but through you. And guys that don't understand that think, and again, I always use the metaphor of going out in the desert with a canteen of water. You have a canteen of water, it's great for a while, but all of a sudden it runs out. Now what do? I have writer's block, you can't play. It's because you think it's coming from you. But if you look at that creativity as a river that flows alongside that desert, you can go and dip from it anytime you want. Then you learn to trust it, that it'll always be there. And so it relaxes you. And so you basically just come, it comes through you. So lessons, I try to teach that as well. And those are the things that most clinics don't really understand. And they perform and they play at you, as opposed to, no, you have to understand why I'm doing something. Anytime when I was taking martial arts, Taekwondo, I would always ask the instructor, why are we learning this move? And not like being, why do we have to do this? It means, what's the purpose of this? In other words, what's the practical application for this, or what's the spiritual application? I always wanted to understand every move I was doing, so that I knew to where it needs to come from. And he was like, well, okay, I'll tell you. That's a very good question. And so that's what you have to do. Why are you doing it? It's one thing to learn a language and learn to say, I could teach you, say this Spanish sentence, but if you didn't know what it said, you wouldn't know where the appropriate time to use it, So you have to understand the language that you're doing. And so I feel that a lot of teachers kind of, they fall short in those ways, where they're teaching a lot of mechanics, but they're not teaching the spiritual application or the flow or the things that really separate us into unique guitar players. You know, why does Beck sound like Beck? Gilmore sounds like Gilmore. Holdsworth sounds like Holdsworth. Steve Howe sounds like Steve Howe. Ronnie Monk. It's because they're all playing the same scales. They're all playing the same alphabet. They're taken from that, you know, those seven letters. Why do they all sound different? Has nothing to do with what they're playing. It's how they're playing it. And where does that source come from?
That's a lot to unpack, brother. That's awesome. You know, you know, it's funny. I was going to touch this at some point. It's like, you know, Mark, I know why people like to work with you. You kind of have been you've spelled it out already. It's because you have a huge heart. And
that's my father.
You know what? You have a big heart, and you like to share it, and you're very articulate as you do it. So you have this river that you're talking about running next to you, the creativity that you can pull out of.
Yeah.
The way you think is that way as well. Hey, I'm kind of a product. I mean, looking way back, I'm a product in the early days of, I don't know, Steve Howe, Steve Morris, Jeff Beck, a little Clapton, a little this, a little that, a little Hendrix. And it kind of, you know, you take all those things and you mix them together and you keep playing, and then you become Mike Redman, you know. I mean, who are your, you know, what mix did you come from? I mean, who did you listen to? Who were your heroes and stuff?
Well, my early heroes were Spider-Man, Hulk, Thor, Daredevil. That's why I have them on my guitar. Everybody thinks, what are your early influences? Well, that's what they were. Because I wanted to be a superhero. I dress up and do that thing. But I know it seems like that's a non sequitur, but it ain't. It isn't. That's being able to do something superhuman and having it as a secret that you can't tell people. You know, it's very sort of that. Why I'm a comic nerd, you know, for that reason. But musically, I mean, all of those guys, you know, there were so many, and you ever notice in your life when you things that you remember from childhood, they may not be something that was a traumatic event. It may have been just something somebody said to you, but for some reason, your brain decided to take that and put it in resin plastic and log it in here so you'll always remember it. It will never deteriorate. Weird stuff like that. I remember just things that my friends would say, or that my mom said, or some stranger said that had nothing to do with anything. It wasn't connected to any relevance that I could find. But for some reason, I remembered exactly what they said, word for word. Why is that? So I think when it comes to guitarists that influenced me, they didn't have to necessarily be ones that were the household words. You know, obviously.
Good point.
All of that's true, but I may have found something that from some obscure guitar player. I went, what was that? You know, and oh wow, and that'll open up something. So you're taking from so many small events, some larger, of points in your life. You know that you know, it's like a pinball. You know,
that's a really good point. That's
somewhere else, and so because of that, you exceed the sum of what you were taught. All right. You learn to think independently, and you learn to have the confidence to then filter all of those aspects through your own mental thumbprint, so that you yourself now have a bit of uniqueness to it, because it's like all the ingredients you go to a store, right? You got your pepper, your cayenne, your paprika, your cinnamon, you know, all of those things. Everyone can take those same ingredients but make a different chip dip, you know, with them, you know, whether it's, you know, and it all depends on the certain amount of those ingredients per person will make a different dip for the party, and they'll all be great and they'll all be different.
Now, you making this up, or have you said this before in an interview?
No, I'm just making this up.
This is good shit, man.
But I'm just saying it's that's what it is, though. You know what I'm saying? It's like,
I get it. That's
stuff. And so we're all products of the same DNA musically, but we hear it differently because of our own life experiences. We just hear things differently, which is what's wonderful about music, and why you always want to be true to yourself, because that's the only person you're best at being is you. I'm not good at being Hendrix. I'm not good at being Steve Howe. I'm good at being me with those guys as my influence. And so that's why it's a hard question to go, well, who were your main ones? It's such a, without that little of paprika,
Yeah.
it wouldn't be what it is, you know.
Yeah.
It's like Laura Petrie when she leaves out the mustard dip, you know, when Millie tries to make the dip on Dick Van Dyke, like, oh shit, I left out the mustard, you know. But that's kind of what it is, you know.
That is a really unexpected but cool answer. Because no, it is. I used to sit around for, they got this, my kids had this great picture of me, on the refrigerator for a while, of me sitting on a toilet, pretty much naked, just practicing good guitar. And they're like,
Well, you're in good
Dad.
company because I've seen Frank Zappa on a toilet.
Well, there you
Seen
go.
Charles Bukowski.
Yeah, but he
on a
died
toilet.
of well, you know what. So, but I read somewhere, probably on your website again, that you're kind of really getting into orchestration these days. Is that Conrad Pope kind of orchestration, or are we talking about something else?
Well, orchestration. I mean, orchestration is you talking about symphonic orchestration?
I don't know. It was actually, I do believe it was on your website that you were going to do something.
I think probably it may have been the Three Fates project. Yeah, orchestration is a transferable term where you can be orchestrate
Yes.
a rock band, you can orchestrate.
You can orchestrate a picnic. Yes.
Right. Yeah. So as far as musically, I
Mm-hmm.
think probably it was more symphonic. Keith and I had the opportunity to go over to Munich and do a symphonic album with Tadje Mikkelsen and the Munich Radio Orchestra, which is a brilliant orchestra. And so we set about to recreate some of the ELP songs in orchestral form, which had already been done with Endless Enigma and Tarkus. We went in and redid some of that to make it more towards Keith's liking. And then we did Malambo, which was a Ynastera piece, Fanfare for the Common Man, Aaron Copland. And then we wrote some things independently. I wrote, I actually had American Matador reorchestrated by Kjetil Berkenstrand, who was a brilliant orchestrator. And then I wrote two pieces, Walking Distance and Morning Sun, that the original pieces that I orchestrated. And then Keith wrote, after all of this, just some beautiful stuff. And we were able to go over there and to have an orchestra at your beck and call is something that you don't turn down. Again, that's something that can be frightening. But again, and here's an example of what I'm talking about with regard to channeling is, okay, so Tadje calls me, who's the conductor and who's arranging this entire thing, and we couldn't have done this without him. He said, write a couple of pieces. I want you to write a couple for the orchestra. So I sat down and wrote. We get over there, and I'm playing, one of the tunes, and the producer couldn't believe, and I'm just to cut this short, but it couldn't believe that I had not been to a conservatory or studied Mahler or all of these other things. Couldn't get his head around the fact that I was just this rock and roll guitar player, so to speak. It didn't make any sense to him but what it did is it proved to me two things. It proved to me that you have no limitations if you allow yourself not to have the limitations. And two, the channeling can expand into all facets of music. It doesn't matter. Your muses are your muses. They're chameleons. Whatever they want to bring you, as long as you allow it to come in, it's there. It's like what we are is a prism. I always think of this. I think of an artist or a musician as could be like a prism where you have all of this white light coming in. Right. And you hit the prism and all of a sudden it breaks into all of these colors. Right. And it depends on the facet of the glass, depends on what color you want to bring forth. But you're getting all of that information in through white light. White light contains all colors. So you as a prism, you decide what color do I want to reflect today? Whether it's red, blue, green, purple, any of that. I'm going to facet my diamond to accentuate those colors today. Knowing full well that you're fully capable of doing all of it if you would just leave yourself open to that white light. And when it comes in and flashes, and I faceted my diamond to reflect classical music, and what I term to be that in the inputs that I've had through my life. And apparently it worked because I fooled this guy into thinking I'd studied it.
That's awesome because I had a very similar experience with Disney where my first real gig was them. The scene was Mickey Mouse conducting the Millennia Orchestra on top of Cinderella's castle. And I was a rock guitar player. And I was like, I went, oh shit. And
Yeah.
and it had to be on air the next morning. And
Yep.
but it's a pretty funny story. But I think I did the same thing. I was able to channel, in some, I don't know if it's channeling for me, but yes, it was.
Yes, it was.
Yes, it
Channel.
was. But it was, what was really interesting is I could hear it. I just had to figure out how to get it on paper for people to
Right.
play it. And
Yeah.
fortunately, my drummer went to Northwestern and had a degree in composition.
Yeah.
And he's sitting in the back writing all this stuff.
Yep.
And we recorded at 3 a.m. And it was probably, I told people, I said, it's probably to this day, the best piece of music I've ever written.
Yes,
It's
because it was
crazy.
done with no filter.
It just
But
went
that's
right.
it. That's,
Yeah.
I always liken my muses to firemen, where I always think of them up there reading a magazine or watch soap opera, and the siren goes off, right? The bell goes off. What do? They run down that pole. Okay, where's the fire, right? Okay,
Yeah.
what we're the fire truck. We're the truck. They're the muses. When we do this or we do this, that's the fire alarm. And they go,
Yeah.
somebody needs us. Down. Where's the fire? Now, it depends on your maintenance of that fire truck. How is it clean? Does it have the oil changed? Is it got gas in it? All of that. That's what this is. That's what this is. That's what the study is.
Yes.
Is keeping your car tuned up so whoever wants to drive it, it'll respond to them.
Yep.
And that's where your buddy came in for that,
Yep.
from Northwestern to write
Yep.
that. That's our conscious effort that we can do, is keep our chops up, keep our knowledge of music up. So when it comes in, we'll know how to get it from abstract to corporeal. And that's what it takes. Because there really is nothing more beautiful than getting something that is originating or germinating as an idea in your head that no one can see, no one can hear, no one can touch, feel, taste, any of that. Being able somehow, through the means that mankind has been given for communications, to come out and actually manifest so that someone outside your head can enjoy what you were hearing inside your head. That's a fucking miracle.
That
And,
is.
that's why we have art, is for that reason, because
Wow.
it's true expression. And to be able to do that, you never pay what it's worth as far as dues.
Yep. That's I have to sit back on that one for a minute. Let me ask you a couple of quick ones.
Yeah.
How important? Okay, you do lots of things. Let's put it that way. How important is it for a guitarist to be able to read music?
To read music?
Yeah.
It depends on their livelihood. If you're going to be a studio player, it makes a lot of sense to read music. I can read music. I'm not an avid sight reader because I haven't been put into that position in my career where that's paramount. You play something, I can hear it, and like what James Newton Howard would do is he would send me the music beforehand. I would read it, I would get it down, and then I would kind of assimilate it and then go in and play. Now that was, he was very cool at doing that, and others have done the same thing. Other times I had to go in and just read, and I could read chords without any problem, but notes, I have to work and make sure that I have it. I'm not a sight reader, can just lay it like that.
Oh, me either. Yeah.
Yeah, but Beatles didn't sight read. So many people didn't sight read. Look at their careers; they changed the course of music. So, and sight reading or music in itself is extremely approximate. And I'll give you a good example of that. Is I was driving one day in the car and I had classical radio on, and I was listening to Firebird Suite, right, by Igor Stravinsky.
Yep.
And the end that goes dun 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 bum 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 dun 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 dun, right? And but they were playing it so fast that it was like, oh my God, they're just gutting the feel of this. Stravinsky, it was just this beautiful, and they were just rushing through it like I have a union break in 5 minutes. We got to get through this, So they get done, and I'm like, who the fuck was the wanker who was conducting it? He goes, Stravinsky's, Firebird Suite conducted by Igor Stravinsky. And I went,
Oh my God.
what?
That's so hilarious.
He doesn't know how to conduct a song. This I was screaming in the car. He doesn't know a damn thing about it. It's not, but my point being, He obviously heard it that way. Where
Yeah.
other people just like, Igor, nah, you're rushing through that shit. Lay it back, get a pocket for it,
Yeah.
And so,
That's so funny.
but it's the same music, see?
Yeah.
But a completely different interpretation of it. So music is totally approximate as far as how you interpret it. I have my own musical notation that I do if I'm writing stuff down. It looks nothing like music, but I know how to read it. Who's to say that just because that's the way somebody chose to put it down, that you don't have a better way or a different system that helps your brain remember stuff? So again, reading music,
you hit it the first time at the beginning when I think you said it kind of depends on what part of this musical journey career do you want to focus on.
Yeah, it's like what country
if you're a
do you want
session
to visit?
player. Yeah, they want you to read it dead the first time, and perfect.
So if you're going to live in Mexico, it's good to learn the language. If you're going to visit Mexico once in a while, you can get by with a few words,
Yeah,
So
you probably like spicy food, so okay. My favorite three guitars are a '68 Strat, a 2003 Parker Fly that I have that came out of the same tree as Joni Mitchell's, and a Collings acoustic. What are yours?
Well, one of them is the Pacifica that I currently play, my Marvel Superheroes Pacifica, because I put that together. We were able to make it exactly to my specs. It has a great feel and just has a great complete encompassing sound that if I take one guitar with me, that's the one, because I can get all kinds of great versatility out of it. So that's one. Second one is my Gretsch Duo Jet. I have pyramid flat wounds on there like George Harrison had.
Yeah,
and it is the Beatle guitar. I mean, it makes with those flat wounds that the Gretsch picks up, it makes every track sound amazing when you put it in there. It just has this glassy tone that, it's like putting maple syrup on cow shit. It'll always taste good. Doesn't matter what's underneath it, So that's kind of how that Duo Jet is. It's like that. And my third guitar is it's the only one that's the only one that's in existence, is my 1964 left-handed Firebird 5. No one else has this guitar because they made one. Even Paul doesn't have this guitar. I was a huge Johnny Winter fan, listen to play that slide and on that Firebird. And I always looked for one and I couldn't find one. And so I ended up thinking, well, I have a I don't know if you remember the Guild Thunderbirds, the one like Giselle Yanowski used to play on the Love and Spoonful. They were called the Gumby guitar. Right. And they had a little stand that actually came out of the back. You could actually stand it up on its own. Okay. Anyway, I flipped that. I bought one. I flipped one of those so I could play, because you can't find left-handed ones of those. And I thought, okay, Firebird. I went down to I can't remember the name. The Rare Guitars, Norm's Rare Guitars.
Oh yeah.
And maybe I could find a reverse Firebird that I could flip, that the knobs wouldn't get in the way. I was down there, and they're pricing about $5,000. So I went home and said, well, let me see what the going price is so I can work a deal. And I called up a site called, and I've been there before, is in Houston, Southpaw Guitars. In Houston. Okay. And it's just all left. And I got on the website, and the splash page, I swear to God, the flash page, there's a Firebird right there in front of me. And I should have known it, because I heard the choir, and I saw the ray of light coming down on the bird surfing. Yeah, I went, oh, yeah. And it said, original Gibson Firebird 5, the only one in existence.
Oh my God.
$27,500. And I'm like, I start breaking out in a cold sweat, right?
Yeah.
And going, shit, this is the guitar I've been looking for all of these years.
Yeah.
And I was raising a family, and I'm like, that's So I called. The first guy I called was Bob Birch, who was my best friend, played for Elton John. And I called Bob. I said, Bob, I found it. He goes, you found what, God? And I said, no. I found the Firebird. You mean? And he goes, you did? You found? Yeah. I said, yeah. And he goes, and he says, they want $27,500 for it. And he goes, oh, hell, get it. And I went, really? He says, oh, absolutely, get it. I mean, $2,700, that's nothing.
Yeah, I knew that was coming, yeah.
$27,000. He goes, you're out of your fucking mind,
Yeah, no kidding.
And he laughed, and then he goes, "No, man, you should get it." I said, "All right, thanks for the advice." I was talking to I thought about it for a while, and it says, I can't afford this, with a family and all that. So I was talking to my wife about it. I said, "Joy, you're not going to believe this. I found the fire red for all this." She goes, "Well, really, you going to get it?" I said, "It's almost 28 grand." And she goes, "Oh." She says, "Are you?" I said, "I don't think I'm going to get it." And she says, "Are you then comfortable with the fact that it was in your grasp, you denied it, and you'll never see it again for your entire life? Are you prepared to be able to coexist and live with that?" And I said, "I don't know." And she goes,
She is
"Personally,"
a smart lady. Yes,
she said, "I think this was put into your space for a reason. I mean, what were the odds that you were looking for that and it appeared right to you?" She says, "That sounds more divine." She says, "I personally think you should get that guitar." And so she talked me into getting that guitar.
That's what a blessing she is, huh?
She was. We've been married 38 years. That's why.
Wow.
And so I have that guitar. So that is my third favorite guitar, is the fact that I can play Highway 61 Revisited, Ride Along Johnny.
That is a great story. So this is the end of Mark Bonilla Part 1. Keep your eye out for Part 2 in a couple weeks.